Welcome back to One on One, New York's longest running sports call-in show. I'm Chris Hennessy. Andrew Galata keeps coming with us, and we're joined now by Mike Mancuso from WFAN. He's going to talk to us about a lot of different things today. Mike, thanks for joining us.
Gentlemen, my pleasure.
So it's been a very interesting hot stove season in the MLB. It's very late to get going, but lots of the big names are landing now. George Springer this week lands with the Blue Jays. The Mets lose out on him after much speculation that they were going to land him. Where do they go from here? Are they going to spend more? Are they going to be content with the outfield that they currently have in Flushing? Where do you see them going after Springer goes to Toronto?
Yeah, they have probably a couple of different options, and they did lose out on Springer, but I don't know that he was worth to the Mets what he was worth to Toronto. $150 million for 6 years for a 31-year-old is a bit of a leap, but I think the Jays needed to do it. I don't think that the Mets needed to do it. Having said that, you could probably live with Nimmo and Smith in the outfield, but then you become very left-handed since Conforto is in right. So they might look to make another move. I think that, as you mentioned, Chris, a lot of things are happening very late in this winter, and we don't even know if spring training will start on time. So I think they will still make moves, but I don't think not getting Springer is going to really kill this team all that much. I think they'll be able to rebound and do something to improve their outfield.
No, yeah, I mean, I completely agree. As a Mets fan, especially after getting Lindor, I feel like that was the Mets' big piece, and now Springer again. I feel like $150 million for a 31-year-old, I think would be a little of a stretch for them. And Steve Cohen's talked about we're not going to spend like drunken sailors. And I think that had a lot to do with it. And I feel like this Mets team to become, a World Series contender and, try to beat out the Braves in the NL East, I think that they have some holes to fill between maybe relief pitching, starting pitching, outfield, as we said. What would be the biggest position you feel like that they go after and they try to fill here?
Now, I wouldn't mind them going, pitching wise. I mean, in this day and age, the way you go through those guys, I would love to see them cement that deal for Brad Hand. I would love to see them get another starter, maybe a Jake Odorizzi. So you take a gamble on someone, and they do have some assets to do this. I mean, you look at the signing of McCann behind the plate instead of Realmuto. Now, listen, Realmuto's a better player than McCann, but he's maybe a 20% better player, but he wanted 80% more money. So, I don't know that it was worth that risk. So you can now take that money and do other things with it, and you still have a really good catcher, or at least someone who projects to be a really good catcher. So I think if they add some pieces to the bullpen and move around some pieces, they still have to decide on what to do with Seth Lugo. Can they live with Dominic Smith in left field? Is there going to be a DH? I think at this stage we have to assume that for this year there will not be a DH. So, you're going to have to work some things around there. Maybe J.D. Davis, the right-handed. They don't have enough right-handed bats, that's one of the things that I think they miss about Springer is they needed the right-handed bat. So now where do you play J.D.? Can you live with him at third base? Is Lindor good enough at shortstop to cover for J.D.? I mean, McNeil's pretty good at second. A lot of questions, but it's all fun stuff, right, guys? I mean, this is what we want to talk about. So it'll be a very interesting season.
No doubt. Switching gears, the NHL started up just over a week ago now. Islanders, Rangers, and Devils all off to their starts. We'll start with the Rangers, where their star goalie, Igor Shesterkin, has looked shaky in the first couple of games he's played, but overall it's been okay, 1-2 start. What are you seeing from the Blue Shirts so far in a short, very small sample size?
A short sample size is such that now they go on the road for 4 games. Disappointed in their start against the Islanders, but they came back and had a real strong second game. Shesterkin has been fine in regards to he has Georgiev started the second and third games. Igor got in the third period, which I think was a good move. But I think Quinn is on the clock now. I mean, these guys, he's got to get these guys playing more. I think Capo needs to step up. I think he needs to get some of the playing time on the power play that Ryan Strome has been getting. I think that defense looks terrific. I mean, I've been to 2 of the 3 games at the Garden, and watching Miller and Fox play, especially when they're off the puck, it's just amazing to see how young they are and how adept they are at filling in spots and knowing where they're supposed to be. So I think it's very promising on defense. Lindgren is terrific. I mean, I think there are a lot of really good pieces there, but I just think they need to get a little bit more scoring from the second and third tier guys. They need guys like Kreider to score more. They need Strom to score more. I think you're going to get out of Panarin and Zibanejad what you need to get. Lafreniere's, he's 3 games into his career. I mean, I think the signs are all pointed up, but now they have to move up that upslide a little quicker, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like for the Rangers, a really young team and everything's pointing up. Do you feel like kind of a COVID year, a weird year in the NHL, do you think that would stunt them a little bit, or you think that they'll be fine and they'll still be able to, continue to get better and make a playoff run?
No, I think they'll make a play. I would expect a playoff run. I think that they have to make a playoff run, and I think that everyone is playing under the same rules. So every team has young players. Every team's got has to deal with a short training camp and injuries and all this stuff. What doesn't kill you make you stronger, right? And I think that we're going to have the Devils were very impressive the other night. Hughes has really started to show in the second year, and not just based on the fact that he had a crazy game against the Rangers. I mean, I'm just talking to Devils people who have watched him in training camp, watched him in the first couple of games, that you can see that he looks more NHL ready. And I want to see that out of Capo for the Rangers. And I think he's got to give him a little bit more playing time. The Islanders are, it's just led by people that know what they're doing and have a proven track record. And when you got guys like Lamarillo and Trotz running your organization, and Anders Lee has stepped right into a leadership role when they lost Tavares. I think the Islanders are clearly the best of the 3 teams, but they also have the most proven management and leadership. So either way, I think it's going to be a fun hockey season.
Going back to what you said earlier about Keandre Miller and the rise of him and Adam Fox as a power play quarterback for the New York Rangers, that leaves an odd man out, which for the second game against the Islanders at least was Tony DeAngelo, who got exposed by Matthew Barzal and then took a dumb penalty in game 1 and was benched for game 2. How do you see his Ranger future playing out? Do you see him being a Ranger for an extended period of time or traded before the deadline this spring?
Well, he's got a 2-year contract extension, right? He signed for 2 years. The way, Chris, you mentioned he got undressed by Barzal. All right, you know what? Every defenseman has gotten undressed by Barzal. That's fine. That's going to happen. All right. Losing your cool is inexcusable. All right. And that has happened with him in the past. Okay. And I'd always say when you have a player, and I've done this myself as a coach because I've coached plenty of situations with different players, I would rather have somebody who is overexcited and over-enthusiastic, in Bastick, I can't even speak, and dial him down than have somebody who is a little lethargic and a little slow and you got to rev him up. So having said that, there were situations in the past with DeAngelo where they had to speak to him about his hot-headedness, and he had a pretty darn good last year and second half of the year before that. It's a very good player. I would not be so quick to sell him out or trade him. You have a need for 6 defensemen. I mean, your 5th and 6th defenseman is still playing 12 to 13, 15 minutes a night. So I think there's a spot for him, but it's up to him now. If he keeps his head screwed on straight, he can have a decent career here. If not, they'll trade him and he'll have to struggle someplace else. But he does have a lot of talent.
Yeah, I mean, just to switch it over to the Islanders, you talked about them like they're the best team in New York going into the season, between the Rangers, Devils, and Islanders. But I know their goal is not just to be the best team in New York, it's to be the best team in all of hockey. So what do you feel like their keys are to return to the, conference finals and further to a Stanley Cup?
Injuries, maybe, because the defense is there. They're going to score. Maybe they would need to get a little more scoring out of their third line. Pajot helps that. Their defensive system is second to none. Varlamov, he's better than I thought he'd be. Again, he's another one of those guys that, when you start seeing him play often, you realize, hey, this guy's pretty good. He's playing out west with, I think he was with Colorado. And see, I don't even know exactly off the top of my head where he played. He's good. The name, you follow the box scores. But when you see him play on a reasonable, regular basis, you say, this guy's pretty good. I just think it's scoring. They got, if they can get some goals out of their third line, I think that, they can make a good run as any. I mean, look, they took Tampa to 6 games, right? And they were ready to, even though it was a shortened season last year with the whole COVID mess, they're a good team. And you make the Final Four, anything can happen. And I think they're certainly capable of doing that.
Well, I, for one, hope you're right. So we'll move on to the Giants. They have an up and down season that ends in disaster that they could not prevent on Sunday Night Football. But that leads them to bringing back both Dave Gettleman and Daniel Jones. What are your thoughts on bringing back both of them? Gettleman more surprising for me personally than Jones, but both of them. And do you think that they deserve another shot in year 3 for Jones, and I believe it'd be year 4 for Dave Gettleman?
I think yes for Jones because, it's only his 3rd year. I mean, take a look at, all the quarterbacks that have been developed in the past 20 years. Very few are 2nd-year stars, and he had some injuries. Now, you and I having this conversation a year from now, we'll have a clearer picture on him, but I'm not ready to say that Jones is not the guy. So I think that, plus it's just, they don't have to make any kind of contract decisions on him yet. So I'm okay with bringing him back. Gettleman, the Giants don't like change. They believe that, consistency is very important for the flow of a franchise. So I think that a lot of his draft picks last year made significant contributions to the team. And the fact that Barkley was hurt, I don't have a problem, and I'm not a company guy, so I would be very, very straightforward with that. But I think in this case, it made sense to bring them both back because, look, Judge is the CEO of the field, right? And he had, I thought, a decent first year. They certainly have some things to tighten up, but their rookies made a terrific impact, right? I don't remember the stat or the number that I saw, but they rated the amount of playing time and significant contributions of first-year players, and the Giants were rated very high. And even a guy like Carter Coughlin, a linebacker, or some other guys, they made impact and they made contributions. So I think that when you look at Judge impressing in his first year, some of the rookies making contributions, and the fact that Daniel Jones is only going into his 3rd year, I was okay with bringing everybody back.
Yeah, and I feel like this offseason for the Giants is just so pivotal because, again, if Gettleman does fail next year, then you probably see the chopping block. But you buy him another year, and to me, this Giants team, what really impressed me was that defense got a lot better, and that has a lot to do with the coaching staff and what they were able to do. But with not that much cap space, they're going to have to key in on the draft to help fix that offense. And to me, I think the biggest thing is to give Daniel Jones a little, more weapons. I know Saquon was out last year, but still, he definitely needs some more wide receivers. What would you do in the draft? Would you go out, get a wide receiver, maybe an offensive lineman, or would you maybe do another position of need?
I think, I want to also touch something on Gettleman and this Chris's point before. I think Gettleman has to get credit for some of the free agent signings that made significant contributions to the Giants this year. And having said that, their cap now is a little restricted, so they are going to have to rely on the draft. And to answer your question, Andrew, I do think that they need to get a receiver, and I do think they need to get some offensive line help. To me, that would be 1 and 2. Of course, if you can get a pass rusher and something happens, then that might change things up. And I'm not an expert on the college players that are coming out right now, so I don't want to speak to any that I might not be, up to speed on. But I would agree with you. I think that, if they can get a receiver or some offensive line help, I think that would definitely be going in the right direction, especially offensive line help when you know you got to play Washington twice and you know that their defensive line is just beastly, right? So, and we saw how important division games are. So, so that's where I would be looking.
Without a doubt. All right, we'll get you out of here on this one. So Andrew wrote this. I think he's 100% right. A lot of the New York team, after the last 5 years of what's been an unmitigated disaster for every team, the Yankees in this godforsaken town, everybody started to kind of turn around a little bit, right? You got the Mets with Francisco Lindor. You got the Jets completely clearing house, and there's nowhere to go but up. The Giants seem to be a little bit better. Rangers and Nets and Knicks all starting to put it together a little bit. And, of course, the Islanders go to the Eastern Conference Final. Besides the Yankees, you take them out of it. Who do you think the first team to make a serious run of the championship will be in New York?
I think it would be the Islanders.
I like that.
And I do think that only because I've seen how effective starting pitching can be when used properly in this day and age. Starting pitching going 5 innings, 6 innings. You got a guy like DeGrom who can pitch deep into the game, or Garrett Cole. I think the Mets would be behind the Islanders, and I think those would be your two besides the Yankees at this point.
Like they've gotten the closest out of everybody besides the Yankees over the last, since the Mets made the World Series in 2015, being a goal away from Game 7 in the Eastern Conference Final last year. Mike Mancuso, thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. We'll be back on one-on-one WFUV Sports right after this short break.